What's going on, guys? I'm Corey.
I'm Shane.
And welcome to another episode of the Slasher Center podcast.
And today on the podcast, we will be... first off, before we actually introduce the podcast, we want to apologize for taking a while off of the podcast. We had a bunch of things going on, but we're here now. We're probably going to be uploading every week on Wednesday or Thursday. And... we're just gonna put our time into it,
and it's a great time to be a horror fan because we got the Scream TV series that's already out. We got the Child's Play movie that we still got to review, the remake. There's a lot of other great projects coming out that we're really excited to review and discuss and analyze and talk to you guys about.
Okay, yeah, and so today on the podcast we will be ranking probably, I would say, the biggest horror franchise. You just gave it away, but the biggest horror franchise in probably out of all of them in Halloween. This is personally my favorite franchise, and I don't know about Corey, but I definitely
I'd say it is. It's what got me into horror, I'd say.
Yeah, but yeah, so we'll start out with number 11. On my list, I have Halloween Resurrection. Now, this movie was very, very confusing. I don't know why after H2O they made another movie. I just think the sequel to H2O in this movie was horrible.
It was an abomination. Yeah. They should have taken it in a much more different route. I don't know why they decided it would be a good idea to kill off Jamie Lee Curtis in the very beginning, and I don't know why they thought they can make it like a contemporary teen slasher film. I think it was handled horribly.
The one thing I could definitely say about this movie is I loved Michael Myers' house. The Michael Myers' house, just the scenery in general, was very scary to me. The mask, I think the mask is one of the best masks in the series, but it just wasn't used right in the movie. Like, obviously, this movie is the last on my list. And it just wasn't good acting. The choice of actors is just horrible to me. But I definitely like the mask, and I definitely like the house in the movie.
Okay, so now this is where me and Shane have different opinions. For number 11, I have Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
I don't know what you're doing. I know a lot of people hate the movie, but I don't think it should be the last.
But I do have my reasons. I really do. And I'd like to start off by saying I respect this movie because it took a risk, which it did. It's definitely more psychological, which I don't mind personally. The problem is that the movie latches onto the concept in a repetitive way, and it takes me out of the film every time I view it. To me, every time I watch it, I just lose focus, and it's got to be, how they executed the story. And believe it or not, Rob Zombie was completely free to do whatever he wanted with this sequel. It did remind me of House of a Thousand Corpses, which, believe it or not, I'm actually not a fan of. I didn't like the first one, but I like The Devil's Rejects.
Rejects is very good.
Yeah. The reason why I like Rob Zombie's...
Jamie Lee Curtis too, right? The Devil's Reject?
She wasn't in it. No, Rob Zombie's wife was in it.
Rob Zombie's wife. That's who it was. I thought it was Jamie Lee Curtis for some reason.
Yeah,
but I understand where you're coming from about the psychological part. The one thing, again, I mentioned this in the Chucky ranking. I like gore, and this movie, you see Michael Myers like no other. You see him, no remorse, obviously, like he is, but you just feel his anger in the movie. I felt him angry when he was stabbing somebody.
Right, like when he killed Octavia Spencer, the nurse in the very beginning. That was probably the most brutal scene in the franchise.
I remember counting how many times he stabbed the nurse.
She was also in Ma, which we saw recently. We got to review that soon.
But yeah, I remember how many times he stabbed her. It was like something around like 13 to 15 times. And that really got me to liking the movie. And even though it was just a vision or a dream in Laurie's eyes, or in Laurie's sleep, it still got me hooked to it right away. And obviously I didn't like the white horse. It was very confusing. Obviously, like, you just see Michael like having visions of his mom and a white horse.
But
and
like I didn't like how Rob like like shoehorned his wife into the hallucinations. Also, they got another young actor to play the young Michael Myers, who's completely different. It's like, I don't know why they didn't just go with the original actor. I guess he got too old for the part, but this should have never happened.
It was only 2 years after that came out, but they probably filmed it in 2008.
Hit puberty really fast, but the whole White Horse theme is just dumb. Like, I have no elegant way of putting it. I didn't like it. You know, Michael's supposed to be a living, breathing monster, and by having vivid memories of his mother and his younger self, just makes no sense for his character motivation. There's no other way of putting it. Like, he's not supposed to show any signs of emotions or setbacks. He's purely and simply evil, which is what Donald Pleasance said in the original Halloween.
Yeah.
But I will say this: the opening hospital sequence, probably the best way of opening a horror movie ever. I thought it was the best scene in the movie, but after that sequence, the movie fell completely flat for me at this point.
I think that you got to give credit to Rob Zombie. He obviously only had a year to film this movie, and a lot of people after the first remake was like, get the second movie out, we want the remake to the sequel. And he was put under so much pressure, and I think he did a solid job for the time that he had to do it.
Also, for whatever reason, I thought Laurie was more likable in the first Rob Zombie's Halloween, but in this one, I think it was on purpose that they made her kind of unlikable because it's alluding to her genetic weakness from her madness.
She was crazy.
But I did like how she was attempting to fix herself and dealing with the PTSD. But I think they focused a little bit too much on that. But I'll talk about what I did like. I did like Danielle Harris as Annie and Sheriff Brackett, played by Brad Dourif, Chucky. They brought some sympathy to the table, and they showed the real humanity, trying to help Laurie, and their deaths were, pretty... Well, did Sheriff Brackett? No, Sheriff Brackett didn't die. I think it was just Annie, right?
It was just Annie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
also...
Go ahead. A lot of blood. There was so much blood. I remember when Annie actually got killed, there was so much blood all over the place. And, I remember Laurie walking to the bathroom, seeing her, and she looks in the mirror, she sees Michael, and, he had that one part of his mask ripped off, he saw his eye, and I thought that was completely scary. Especially he's 7 foot tall in the movie, and it's just like a giant looking right at you.
Now, there's one main problem that I had with this movie, and this is all I'm going to say. I didn't like Loomis in this film. In the first one, I didn't mind him because he was more serious and intelligent when it came to the discussion of Michael Myers. But in this one, he's Mr. Hollywood trying to sell novels. He's more arrogant and egocentric in this film, which is something that has always bothered me.
Original Loomis they would never do that to original Loomis.
Right. It's different, but again, I didn't like the way it was executed. I think they should have stuck, not completely rip off the original, but this was a little too much of a jump, and I felt like he had no character arc, and it felt forced in my opinion.
I also think that, obviously in the original Halloween 2, it took place in the hospital from pretty much all the movie. I think he wanted to represent the hospital scene just like in Halloween 2 in the remake, but he just didn't want to stick to that, and I think that was...
He wanted to expand his horizon.
Yeah, that was a good job on him for not just, copying pretty much Halloween 2. But yeah, so we'll get into number 10. Number 10 for me is Halloween 5. Now, again, I'm a big guy on this franchise. Again, like I said, this is my favorite franchise. So Halloween 5 to be number 10 on the list is not too bad. But we'll go into perspective here. First off, the mask was not scary at all. I think it was the most goofy mask in the whole entire series. I just did not like it. I didn't like the fact that they cut off Rachel.
The mask looked like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, but I didn't like the fact that they cut off Rachel. I thought, I think Jamie needed somebody there, like in Halloween 4, to help her out with Michael.
Completely agree.
And the ending really caught me off guard because Michael was just taken out by the thorn people, and it was really confusing to me. But in general, I liked the movie. It just didn't. It was just confusing throughout it to catch on to it.
Right. So next, for my number 10, I have Halloween Resurrection. Now, this film is very bad. Like, there's no denying it. It's a terrible movie. In my opinion, it's not the worst in the franchise, but that doesn't mean that it's not terrible, because it is. It really is.
I disagree, but go on.
But in some cases, it is entertaining to watch on screen. It is humorous to watch, And for those that don't know, Halloween H2O was actually Jamie Lee Curtis' idea, and she wanted to end the franchise by having Laurie get killed off by Michael for good. But once the script was ready, Jamie Lee Curtis asked why the ending was left open, and she was told that there was a clause in the contract that Michael couldn't be killed off.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that. Yeah, I remember in the hospital scene when they brought him in at the end and he opened his eyes.
I wasn't aware of this either, but I did my research, and also she was obviously upset by this. So she wanted to be, she wanted the kill to be in the last film, but I do think she was expecting there to be a sequel, but she was obligated in a future film contract, and that's where the problem arises.
Yeah.
This movie single-handedly spit on the mythology by not having Michael Myers go after John, Laurie's son, who should have been in this movie. I don't know why he wasn't in it.
Yeah, it was just a total turn of events, and you just got a whole new cast.
Right.
You got Busta Rhymes, who's more of a rapper and a funny guy than a serious guy in a horror movie, and they made him that way, obviously.
And we follow a bunch of boring, basic, and uninteresting college students through this abandoned Myers house. All I have to say is, what the fuck? And I heard that this movie went through production hell. It was rushed. It should have been a straight-to-DVD release.
I completely agree.
And let me say this. The whole Michael switching places with the paramedic thing and Laurie's mini plot and death and, Busta Rhymes, they're huge flaws. But if you view this film as a fun movie with Michael Myers killing a bunch of dumb teenagers for a majority of the film, it can be slightly enjoyable, because let's not forget, we have Halloween 2018 now. We don't need to think about this movie anymore. We can just sit down and enjoy it, and it won't matter, because we know it's not canon in the music universe anymore. And also, when are we ever going to witness Busta Rhymes fight Michael Myers ever again? When are we ever going to see that again?
The karate stuff you would watch on TV, and you just used it on Michael. That was funny.
It's just like a cheesy 2000s.
I think it's very comical, and it should have been more of a comedy. For example, Scream and Scary Movie, right?
Right.
They should have made this movie like Halloween, and then a funny version of Halloween.
If they cut off Laurie getting killed in the beginning, they didn't even focus on that and just had a fun movie with Michael Myers killing teenagers, I would have been fine with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I honestly would have been fine with it.
But yeah, this movie definitely should have been a comedy horror, which is not.
They could have either taken this movie really seriously or just goof off on it.
Exactly.
But they put it right in the middle, which sucks.
Yeah,
that's what I hate about it.
But again, I did like the house in the movie.
Yeah, the house was very creepy.
It was very creepy. But on to number 9. At number 9, now this movie we weren't originally going to include, but it is part of the franchise, and we have to pay respect to it. Halloween 3. Now, obviously, this movie doesn't have Michael Myers in it. I know that John Carpenter wanted to try something new after Halloween 2, and everybody really didn't. I mean, it's a great movie, but everybody wanted to see Michael again.
Yeah, and believe it or not, Halloween was originally intended to have a mythology series, so they're going to tell a different Halloween-themed story for every movie. But
this movie, again, the reason why I have it this low is because there's no Michael Myers, and a Halloween movie without Michael Myers in the franchise just doesn't seem right. But as a Halloween movie, this is a great movie.
I
love the Silver Shamrock commercial. It gets stuck in my head every time I watch the movie. But again, if this movie had Halloween or Michael Myers in it, it would have definitely ranked up higher.
I also think it would have ranked up higher if it wasn't called Halloween 3. If it was just called Season of the Witch.
Or Season of the Witch. I don't know. But So
what do you think about Tom Atkins, though? I think he did a really good job.
I think he did a great job. It just sucks that Michael wasn't in it, and that's really the main reason why I can't have this movie ranked any higher.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so at my number 9, I have Halloween 5. Now, I will say this. I used to like Halloween 5. I still kind of do, but I gotta say, okay, so if it was viewed as a standalone movie and not a sequel to H4, it's pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
But if you view it as a sequel to H4, it's a complete disappointment.
Yeah.
So Halloween 4 ends with a horrific cliffhanger that implies that Danielle Harris's character, Jamie, has inherited her uncle's, mysterious ways.
Mm-hmm.
So what does 5 do with that? Nothing.
Yeah,
They do nothing.
it just vanishes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you talking about this, that if they went on, they just killed off Mike, and they had Jamie become pretty much his replacement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It would have been a great movie.
Yeah.
And they would. What exactly do you know happened to that? Do you know exactly what happened that they didn't decide to, do that?
It had to do with the director. He had his own vision, and he just wanted to do whatever this is. But I did not like how Jamie was mute for a significant portion of the film. It felt cheesy and overly dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie is supposed to have a psychic link to her uncle, and she was supposed to essentially become the next Myers. But in this film, they threw that all in the garbage,
door, yeah.
which is unfortunate. And I think we should do a video on what Halloween 5 should have been.
Yeah, what Halloween 5 could have been.
Right.
Like something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Also, Dr. Loomis, Donald Pleasance gave it his all for this film, which I respect. He did a great job. I'm taking nothing away from his performance, but he was the character of Dr. Loomis was way too crazed and unsympathetic in this. He's kind of like, Loomis is basically like abusing Jamie and using her as bait for Michael. That's kind of out of character, and obsessed as he is with trying to stop Michael, Lewis should have been a heroic figure that tries to protect people. Like in the first movie, he was trying to protect Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace and all that, and not purposefully endanger them. Quick. Oh,
okay,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. One thing I really did like though about the movie, I didn't talk about this before, but the scene where he's driving the car through the woods and trying to kill Jamie,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really, really ironic that remember when the horn kept beeping for the longest of time. It was getting annoying,
yeah, I remember
and
that.
then once it stops, you just see Mike get out of the car. I thought that was scary,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also funny because the mask was so hilarious to look at.
Yeah. Also, again, like you said earlier, Rachel was killed way too early.
Yeah.
She was an important and strong character in H4, and Tina was kind of a replacement in this movie, but I found her to be insufferable. She should have acknowledged this severity of Jamie's situation, considering a doctor, for crying out loud, warned her about not to go out and party and stay with Jamie, and she was crying her eyes out, and
She just left.
right, but she did redeem herself at the end when she saved Jamie.
And
but again,
pretty much sacrificed herself for Jamie.
Again, killing off Rachel, who was a likable and resourceful final girl in Halloween 4, was pretty insulting to the character.
Yeah, if they switched Tina and Rachel's role, and
Mm-hmm.
Tina died in the house, then this movie probably could have ranked a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Tina was. I remember watching Cody Leach's video. He said that she was the worst actor in the whole entire series.
Yeah.
Because of her, just kind of goofy. She was more of goofy instead of taking this seriously. We're this girl's in danger and there's a killer.
It's not like
after
she was
all
drunk,
this.
because she wasn't drunk before she went to the party,
Yeah.
so she should have, I don't know.
Yeah. But
There's one thing I want to mention. Now, let's briefly talk about the Cult of Thorn concept. So, I'm not a fan of the Thorn idea, but, if they introduced it earlier on and not last minute at the end of H5, I would have been okay with it. The whole Men in Black thing just felt rushed to me and last minute, and it seemed as if the screenwriter got bored and started doodling the end of the pages, he didn't care.
Yeah, now I understand where you're coming from. I really didn't like the Thorn concept.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really ruin Halloween 6 for me, but it was there, and it was just
Right.
why
The whole Man in Black thing, he had no backstory or nothing. He was just thrown in there last minute.
He was like, why is this happening? Why can't Michael just be the crazy killer and go after everybody?
Okay, also, real quick. Now, did you notice the way the Myers house looked in this one? It was a completely different house. It was like a mansion.
It was like a blue, it was like a dark blue.
It was like a gothic
humongous mansion. Yeah, and the first one was just like a normal house.
Why couldn't they at least get a house that kind of looked like
that house. That was so dumb. The Resurrection house was so much better.
It was better, yeah, but even though it looked nothing like the original, I mean, it kind of did. It did, yeah. But
it was just, if they had the regular house, it would have improved the movie a little bit, but not like as much. But it's still an important part to the scenes.
Did you like how the cops, every time they would walk by, they have that cartoony music? Did you notice that?
Yeah,
at a couple points in the movie, it was weird.
Didn't they have that in Halloween 4 too?
They had it. I don't think so. I think it was only in 5.
Really? Okay.
Also, but if you view this movie, as not a sequel to Halloween 4, but as its own thing with Danielle Harris and Donald Pleasant, it's pretty enjoyable, and the finale was pretty good for the most part too. Yeah. So,
I said it before. I really didn't like the finale. It just, obviously it informs you that there's gonna be another movie,
right?
But it just, I thought you lock up Michael, and then say you start Halloween 6 with him escaping. That would have been a lot better. Yeah. In my eyes. But going in now ranking number 8 on my list, I have Halloween the remake. And I know whoever's going to type in the comments, I still haven't mentioned Halloween 2 the remake yet. But we'll get there. So Halloween the remake. This I wrote this down and I thought it represents the movie pretty well. It has a great storyline, great kills, but still it will never compare to the original.
Agreed.
Now, to back that up, you start the movie with Michael's childhood. In the original, you don't see the childhood. But Rob Zombie, I think, did a great job of having the childhood and seeing how Michael was growing up with a douchebag father, a mother that really loved him, but was held back because of his sister and his father. Or stepfather, I guess you could say. And it just wasn't, or it was really good. It just, I
felt a sense of realism. That's why I respect Rob Zombie's vision.
Now, they showed him in the mental institution, and in the original, they only had just like pictures of him, like flashes of him.
Right.
But they actually like showed him in the institution, and it showed us like he came about to becoming a killer. And I like that, and to have Halloween the remake as number 8 on your list is pretty hard. All these movies from now on is really hard to rank in my eyes. But yeah, I really like Halloween the remake. Right. I thought Rob Zombie did a great job.
And I really respect his vision as well, but I think the first half of the movie should have just been chopped a little bit. It was a little too long.
Yeah, it was kind of like Child's Play, you're just like prolonging the beginning.
So at number 8, I have Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and it is pretty hard to compare this since the other movies have nothing to do with Michael Myers. Or this movie does in that case. I thought Tom Atkins did a really good job, and I really liked the scenery in this movie. The Silver Shamrock mask and the whole evil COO of that whole factory, I think that was a pretty cool aspect to witness on screen. It was unique for the most part, but at times the story felt a little too slow in some places. It dragged on a little too long, felt a little boring.
Yeah.
But all around, I enjoyed it. There's some great kills and memorable moments, but I feel as if these other Halloween films are slightly more entertaining than this movie. But I do respect the fact that they tried to do something different with this.
Yeah, I do. Again, like I said before, I do respect it, but would you rather see that, or would you rather see a psychopath in a mask run around stabbing everybody that he sees in his path? But again, I do respect it. 100%. And you really can't talk about it that much because, like, it doesn't go along with every other movie that we're ranking.
And we probably will do a separate video in the future reviewing Halloween 3.
Yeah, we'll probably rewatch it and just, deeply analyze it. Yeah. Coming up now, I know y'all are going to get mad at me. I have Halloween 2 the remake here. Look, I said this in the Child's Play ranking. I like change. I love gore in a movie. I thought
that's probably why you like Cult of Chucky so much.
I thought that Myers in this movie was just crazy, and he was so aggressive, and that's got me really hooked into the movie right away. I didn't like Dr. Loomis. I thought the Hollywood act was so stupid, but I think that Michael's vision of seeing the white horse and seeing his mom. I thought personally the white horse should have been taken out of that. Mm-hmm. If you just saw his mom, I think it would have been it would have been seen as a little bit better
if they had to. But I would have removed it personally. But if they kept that without the white horse thing, I think it would have been
just the mom. Mm-hmm. And I also didn't like how he had like the little child or like a vision of him as a little child.
Yeah, because like who would have an envision of themselves? You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense.
That. But I think just gore over everything in these movies is just great. Obviously, it's not everything, but it's like a big part of it.
What do you think about Michael Myers' look, the whole Hobo Myers thing?
I thought he was really scary. Cool. I thought, you remember when he was, walking through and like those guys came out in the truck.
That was a good scene.
I thought, I saw how pissed he was, and I knew that it was really bad for those guys.
Lots of brutal kills.
Yeah, it was. Again, if we were ranking this based off just gore, I think this would be top 5.
No,
maybe even top 3. But we're just ranking it based off a whole movie in general.
Mm-hmm. So at number 7, I have Halloween 6: The Curse of Michael Myers. And I'm not going to go too in depth with both the producer's cut and the theatrical cut. I'll briefly touch on them, and
we'll talk about them more later when I bring it up.
We might do it even in like a comparison video of the two versions.
Yeah, because they're both. I don't want to say they're both extremely different, but you see, there's obviously different scenes in both movies.
So I'm not the biggest fan of this movie, but I do respect that this movie tried to explain and expand on the Thorn concept that was introduced in Halloween 5. I actually really liked the scenery in this one. It had a very unsettling atmosphere, and there was a sense of dread that throughout that isn't really present in other Halloween films. And I think it's the first Halloween to have really good cinematography in it. So let's talk about the producer's cut. I think the producer's cut was better than the theatrical cut, but not by much. It was a little better, and I'll explain why. So the producer's cut is a little bit more in line with the feeling of the original 78 movie, because they had, they used some of the soundtrack, they borrowed it. And it had a much slower pace and moody atmosphere. It's also not as violent as the theatrical version, but it still has some great moments. And I believe that the theatrical version was intended for teenagers due to the amount of heavy metal rock music throughout the movie and the gore and the violence.
What do you think about Tommy Doyle in this movie?
I think Paul Rudd did a really good job. He was actually one of the redeeming qualities of the movie, and he wasn't afraid to take on Michael, and he maintained a really strange and eerie personality throughout the whole thing, which is great.
I thought one thing I could say about, just going from Halloween 6 to Halloween H2O, the ending was kind of confusing. I mean, I wouldn't say it was extremely confusing, because obviously you knew where this was going. Obviously that there was going to be another movie sooner or later, and they brought H2O out 20 years later. But I thought, at the end of 6 it was just over. But once H2O came out, it was I wonder where Michael went at the end of Halloween 6. Right? He just disappeared and his mask was on the floor.
That was strange. It was strange. But now let me talk about what really bothered me. How the Weinsteins refused to let Danielle Harris reprise her role for the film. Because, they got J.C. Brandy to play Jamie in this one. I think she did a really good job, but here's the problem. She was way too old for the role. Jamie was supposed to be 15 in the movie, and I think Danielle Harris was around the same age. So I don't get why they didn't let her come back. And if Danielle was cast, it would have tied up everything perfectly because she would have been in all 3 films, you know? Let me briefly touch on some good scenes. I really like the operating room massacre and the subsequent hallway chase scene.
That was really scary. And that got me jumping, and I'm like, this guy's really...
And this only occurred in the...
in the producer's cut.
Or the theatrical cut.
Oh, theatrical cut, my bad.
It's edited really well, and it's super creepy. Also, the acting is really good, and most of the cast realistically presents their likable characters. And Donald Pleasance delivers his last and
before he died,
his last performance, and he did a terrific job.
He did,
and he was actually one of the reasons I like the producer's cut because he's in it more. You know.
Yeah. All right. So coming in at number 6 for me is Halloween H2O. I might get a lot of hate for this, for having it this low, because sometimes these movies can, switch around a little bit for me. And, one day I could have H2O in the top 3. Sometimes I could have it at 6, 5, 4, 3. But I'm going to stick to my gut. I'm putting it at number 6. I personally love this movie. It's a great movie. I think that Jamie Lee Curtis did a great job, hiding her identity from Michael. I thought that John, her younger son, did a great job, escaping Michael from in different scenes.
And a lot of the characters were likable too.
Yeah, very likable characters. I liked how they skipped that trip to stay and just party together. The kills were great, but the one thing that really caught me off guard, and I didn't like it at all, and I said this about Halloween 5, is the mask.
CGI mask, yeah.
The masks I thought were really bad.
They used 3 different masks.
Yeah, they using 3 different masks. Like,
one of them looked good. It was the Winston mask with the revealing eye holes. That one looked okay, but they should have blacked out the eyes. But
they should have, but I just thought they should have kept to one mask. They kept to one mask. Honestly, this movie could be close to perfect. But, not having good masks, not having a creepy mask.
Also,
just doesn't...
I think they could have upped the violence a little bit more, a little more blood.
Yeah.
It was a little reduced, but they probably wanted to do that to remind everyone of the original movie.
Yeah. And again, the reason why sometimes this movie could ruin it for me is because of Resurrection. You think as obviously Resurrection is right after, you're saying, oh, this is not even Michael behind the mask. But if you treat it like it's Michael behind the mask, then it's a really good movie.
Right.
And it's just like kills or ends the series. And then obviously the remakes come in. But if they ended it with this movie and Resurrection was never a thing, this definitely could have been my top 3.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited to touch up on that soon. But we're going to move on to number 6 for me is Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. I thought this movie was pretty decent. I actually like how they showed the domestic abuse Michael suffered as a child. The bullying he faced from his peers and his masculine insecurity are all well and good. It's different compared to the original, but I don't mind that since it's a remake or another reimagination.
Yeah, because Rob Zombie just didn't want to just copy the original.
Right, he wanted to do his own thing.
Yeah, he wanted to add in his own part, and adding in his own part was, in the beginning, seeing Michael, how he grew up.
Right. I believe that the backstory should have been minimalized. It should have been shortened because I thought it was a little too long. But I respect Rob Zombie for doing something different. Instead of being this unstoppable force like he was in the original, he was more of like a psychopath in this movie, and we actually see him progress as a character, which is kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, in the original, he was more of like go after Laurie and kill her.
Right.
While in a remake, he was like
he had motivation.
He had motivation just like make sure she's safe, kind of, because like once he got her down in the basement where he was, like he showed her the picture of him and her when they were little.
Yeah.
And she's like obviously she doesn't know what to do because he's not talking to her.
Right.
But it seems like he wanted to keep her safe more than kill her.
And do you know what was really unique about this film? Were how the roles were reversed regarding to Myers and his victims. In the original, Michael's victims were for the for the most part, they were innocent and harmless.
Mm-hmm.
But in this version, the victims are all horrible people, so you can sympathize with Myers more and really discover the horrific events that he has to go through on a daily basis. You know, Michael's mom's a stripper. She's doing all she can to keep a roof over their heads. His mom...
his dad is a lazy bum.
Right. The stepdad, he's abusive, drunken old man who sits at home. His sister's super slutty and treats him like crap. And we get to see why Michael is messed up, you know, when he kills the animals and all that. And I think it was handled very, very well. And Tyler Mane did a great job playing Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm. He was huge. I remember that little kid saying, "Are you a giant?"
Yeah.
But like you said, I think that Rob Zombie did a great job just showing us what caused Michael to have that inner hate for everybody and want to kill everybody in his heart.
Mm-hmm.
That the original didn't show. But the fact that he didn't go after his sister to kill her was, you know, the turning point.
I have a question for you, though. Did you think the third act went on a little too long? Or did you think the runtime was pretty good? To me, it felt the chase scene between Michael and Laurie in the old Myers house.
That. Yeah. It prolonged a little too long.
I think it should have been cut at least 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think that you know, her just like hiding in the house was a bad idea.
Yeah.
It was a really bad idea because it's his house. He knows everything that's going on. Mm-hmm. He knows every single little spot.
Yeah, plus, it's like old and damaged and rugged. Like the roof could cave in and just collapse.
Plus, I remember when Michael took Loomis by the head and just like pretty much crushed his skull.
Yeah.
And he somehow comes back for the next one. I thought he was dead when I first saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that this film could have been a lot better if he just had more hatred towards his sister.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Coming in number 5 for me is Halloween 2. Now, Halloween 2 is one of the best sequels to an original movie ever. I think it's great. The hospital scene is phenomenal. Now, I may be ranking a little too low, and like I said, some of these movies could switch off for me every time I watch it. Yeah, so this movie, it changes for me every time I watch it. I love the hospital scene. The hospital scenery is phenomenal. I think that Jamie Lee Curtis did a good job, you know, sticking to her act after the first movie. You put it, and I put this down. I said if you put 1 and 2 together, it's like a 4-hour film, all in one.
What did you think about Michael Myers and Laurie Strode being siblings?
When she found out that they were siblings,
did you like that, or would you rather that them stick to the original storyline where Michael was supposed to be a stranger?
I thought that they should have. I think they did a good job not revealing it in the original, but in the second movie, or in Halloween 2, I think that was the best thing that they could do for her to know that it's actually her brother that's coming after her, and she didn't even know anything about her brother.
Aspect.
Yeah, I did like it a lot. Okay. They did good job ongoing from the original film, and I think the hospital scene was great.
Okay. So at number 5, I have Halloween H2O, 20 years later. I actually really enjoy H2O, and I think it's a solid sequel. The only thing that sticks out to me is Laurie's characterization. I like how it presents, her becoming a very damaged person. She's on a bunch of medication pills. She's a functioning alcoholic, and she's made multiple attempts to, change her name. And she also became a teacher at one point. It doesn't feel like a typical Halloween film. It felt like a 90s teen slasher film. Like I Know He Did Last Summer or the earlier Scream films. And the movie did a perfect job of bringing Myers into that new style of slashers. Jamie Lee Curtis was great. In the first 2 films, she's purely a victim, reacting to being stalked by Michael. But at the end of this film, she's the aggressor who takes on Michael, and it was really badass. I like the callbacks to the original film. When Michael is looking at Michelle Williams' character when she's in class, And did you notice her mom was actually on screen, who's in the original Psycho, Janet Leigh. And they actually played the Psycho music when she drove away. She was the teacher that approached her.
Yeah,
do you remember that scene?
I remember that.
Mm-hmm. That was a really cool callback. Now, here's the problem. I dislike the mask, like Shane talked about before. So they had to use different masks, and plus some terrible CGI masks, which looked horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the main problems. Also, the actor who portrayed Myers, in other words, he wasn't good. He didn't have the right posture or movement or subtle nuances that any of the other Myers actors had. So it was a very, very poor performance, in my opinion. Did you like how they used the Scream soundtrack in this, or would you have wished they used something else?
The soundtrack to me really doesn't impact the movie that much. I mean, obviously, if you have Michael coming after you, you like to hear his theme song come on. But I think if it's just like...
Did it feel weird to you at some point? Or
Not really.
Not really?
I mean, I really didn't pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to ask you, what do you think about the kills in this movie?
Now, I thought the kills could have been a little more innovative and gory, like I talked about earlier, but they weren't bad. Also, whenever Myers appeared, I didn't like the use of high-key lighting. You know, he was in really bright lighting all the time, and you could like see his eyes and everything. I didn't think that was the right choice. Any fan of the franchise would know that the most prominent use of lighting for Myers is low-key lighting, or that traditional cool blue lighting that they had in the original
it made him more horror.
Made him more mysterious. Also, the opening scene I really liked as well.
Yeah, it was really good. Number 4, I have Halloween 6. Now, Halloween 6 is the most bloody, gory, most insane kills out of every single other movie in this franchise, in my opinion.
Well, theatrical.
Theatrical cut. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. But we'll talk about the producers and theatrical cut a little bit. But in the theatrical cut, you don't really see the behind the scenes with the Thorn guys like you do in the producers cut.
Yeah.
I thought the opening scene with Jamie and her just getting shredded by that thing by Michael.
That was
a great way to open up. I was just kind of confused of where they were to open up the scene, because you see her like running with the baby and then her giving birth.
Supposedly, Michael actually they kind of did this whole incest thing.
Yeah. They explained that in the producer's cut. A lot more.
Yeah, and they were at a cult. I don't know what it was, like a cult hospital or something.
You saw it in the producer's cut.
And the
producer's cut explained a lot more about that. Now, I really love this movie, like because of the gore. The two films, again, it was different endings and it was really strange, but I do like the actual cut ending a lot more. Or no, I would probably say the producer's cut ending a lot more.
Just because they explain everything
just because,
in greater detail.
Yeah, you just see Dr. Loomis get the thorn tattoo right on his wrist, and you just see Mike escape. And I think that would have been a lot better to, get into H2O with him, just getting away instead of just ending it with them filming his mask on the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely say I like the theatrical cut a lot more. It's better, but I think if they just made these two movies into one and they just could agree on something, people would appreciate this movie a lot more.
I feel like they should have taken their time with this one and really figure it out. Like, I respect the fact that they tried, but it could have been executed a whole lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't like the Thorn concept.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world. I think it was used okay, but I just didn't like it in general.
Again, it should have been introduced way earlier on. They threw it in last minute, so the director didn't know. He's like, "What the fuck am I going to do with this?"
Yeah, the reason why I didn't like it is because, again, I view Michael as a serial killer, just going after everybody instead of being controlled by somebody.
Okay, so at number 4, I have Halloween 2018. Another very solid sequel. I think the movie needed to be a little bit longer. I think the runtime was they wanted to make the runtime like about the same as the original movie, if you didn't know. There was a lot in this movie that I loved, but I felt like there were some other scenes that were kind of hindered quite badly because of the editing. I felt like some of the chunks of the movie were missing. The opening scene gave me chills up and down my spine, and I got goosebumps when that music hit. And it was great to see Michael again, especially since they finally got the mask right in this movie.
Yeah. So I thought when you were talking about soundtrack before, you really bring this soundtrack up a lot, which this is probably the movie I know the most soundtrack about. I think the soundtrack I paid attention to more in this movie than any other movie.
Did you think the soundtrack topped
I thought the
original?
soundtrack definitely, I wouldn't say the original, just because the original Myers theme is iconic, exactly. It's legendary. But I definitely say it's up there because, it has that creepy vibe to it. When, the Chasing Allison scene, for instance, I love the music they put in the background for that one. That was creepy. That was,
it was everything that we wanted in a Halloween movie.
Exactly.
I think Nick Castle, even though he was in one scene by the window, he still did a good job. Michael Myers. James Jude Courtney fucking killed it.
Yes.
He rocked this movie. The kills were very, very brutal, which I didn't mind that much. It felt more Jason-esque, but, it had some gnarly gore
honestly,
effects.
the first time that we saw this movie, I was not expecting it to be this
gory. Jamie Lee Curtis is great. She gets lots of opportunities to show some great range. I think Judy Greer and Andy Matichak were also great. I enjoyed the family dynamic and the conflict. The rest of the cast isn't that great, but I feel like they did that on purpose because they're about to get slaughtered anyway, so we don't really have time to dive into their characters or whatever. Like the dad Ray, who's completely useless in this movie, and also the two journalists at the very beginning that get killed. Now, my biggest issue about this movie is that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, they said they wanted to make it the vein of the original. So overall, I felt a lack of atmosphere and tone. Some scenes had suspense, but overall it felt no different than any other horror modern film. There was a little bit too much comic relief. It wasn't as bad as It. There was way too much comedy in that one. In this one, it was okay. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot worse, to be honest.
Yeah, when I get into it, it's in my top 3, obviously, because we only have 3 movies left to rank. I'm going to be talking about this. I want to talk about this when I bring it up, but I think that, just looking at the mask in this movie, I think the mask is really creepy. And, just the way he, killed that plumber and then, took the freaking jaw
a lot of
out of that
off-screen,
other guy.
a lot of off-screen kills, too.
A lot of off-screen kills, but, you see where some of them, where, like, the teeth from the guy, you saw where it ended up.
Like you said, John Carpenter's score was excellent, and it elevated a lot in the movie. Now, let's talk about the atmosphere real quick. So I think they should have taken their time to show the audience what Haddonfield looks like in contemporary times. I would have liked to hear the cool winds, the sounds of the leaves falling, shots of this suburban neighborhood, but we got very little of that, and that's what made the original so special. And they could have easily achieved this, but they chose to go at a faster pace, which I didn't like. Now, let's talk about Michael. I didn't mind the long shots of Michael walking around from house to house, grabbing weapons, killing people. But I would have preferred if they didn't go to this route, because what made the original 2 movies so terrifying was the uncertainty, because we never knew where Michael was.
Exactly, yeah.
And even though watching Michael find weapons and kill random people was really cool and fun to watch, I didn't think it was the right choice ultimately.
I think one scene from the original that definitely explains your point very well is the car scene. When he's in the back of the car, she gets in, and she's like, "Oh, I thought the keys were in here." You just see Mike pop out from the back. I think that really explains your point.
And now let's talk about Dr. Sartain for a minute. So I thought the subplot, it was executed well, but hear me out. I think he should have never put on the mask.
Oh, no.
When he put on the mask, it felt so cheesy. It was a cool twist, but guess what? I think it would have been 10 times better if Sartain stabbed Sheriff Hawkins while he was driving the car, about to run over Michael, because, it would have been like a shock relief for the audience because they wouldn't expect it. So he just get stabbed right as he was driving. I think that would have been much better.
Yeah, but with that though, like if he does stab him while he's driving, he could just go off guard and not even hit Michael with the car. So
That's true.
like, if that happens and he gets out of the car and he's like, Mike, come with me, like, you just have another person controlling Michael, and you don't want that.
Yeah, but he would probably kill him anyways, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
He'd probably just choke him out.
Because he killed him at the end.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I thought the kill at the end with him was so much better than just having him getting choked out.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand your point.
One more thing I'd like to mention. Some of the writing wasn't too good, but again, Carpenter's score and cinematography made up for it. The restroom scene in the beginning was probably my favorite
Yes.
scene in the movie.
Yes.
But guess what? If it was done right, I think it should have been at nighttime,
Mm-hmm.
that whole thing. If it was at nighttime, it would have been the icing on the cake. It would have been so creepy to watch on
I
screen.
have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What do Halloween 5 and Halloween 2018 have in common?
The whole party sequence that goes on, also the gas
Okay. And
attendant
what else?
scenery. Am I missing
One
something?
little thing.
I'm not sure. What
They
is it?
both show Michael's face.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. Also, the original showed Michael's face, but it wasn't.
That was
Yeah, that doesn't
that was
count.
just funny.
Yeah.
That was even like creepy because I remember when Jamie was in the cat, like the little cat coffin,
Yeah.
and she was like, show like eye for an eye. So what was it again? It was like, let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the 2018 film, you saw his eye, which is like all like bunched
Yeah.
up.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think it's bad to show his face,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, you're used to seeing him in a mask.
What did you
so-
think about the callbacks to their movies? Did it distract you, or were you picking them out? Did you think it was fun to pick them out?
Repeat?
Like the callbacks to the other Halloween movies, like the Easter eggs.
Oh yeah. I thought they obviously needed to, pay respect to the other movies and not just completely cut them off, because obviously they put a lot of work into those other movies, even if they were good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, just having everything put into one movie, just those little things,
It's kind of cool.
have
Pick
had
out.
them respecting all those other movies.
Right. So in other words, you liked it.
Yeah, I did like it.
I liked it too. A lot of people complain that it kind of took them out because like, oh, I have to look for this. So it's like you don't have to look
You
for
don't
this
have to,
thing.
just enjoy the film.
I know.
That's what I
And
was
plus, if
saying.
you're a big enough fan, you should just be able to pick it out. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Move
Mhm.
on. I'll just watch the
Exactly.
movie.
All right. We could talk about this together because we both have this film at number 3. That is Halloween 4. Now, obviously, Halloween 3. We kind of want to forget about that, and sort of, but not really, because it's still a good film.
Right.
But I love the return. I love the opening scene where he's in the hospital, his whole face is covered, and he just, in the back of the ambulance, just kills everybody, and then those police officers or the sheriff winds up there the next day with an ambulance in a freaking river. But I love the standoff between Loomis and Michael when he first sees him again.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love Michael's. Okay,
His mask is still bad.
It's still pretty bad, the mask,
Uh-huh.
but there's good kills in this movie. I think
Danielle Harris did a really good job as Jamie.
I think the ending with Jamie killing her stepmom
Mm-hmm.
was very intriguing. If they brought that into Halloween 5 could be up higher.
Right.
Like
And what I gotta say is Jamie, or Danielle Harris, in other words, she does a great job making you root for her character because she was bullied in school. Her life's really tragic. Her mom's supposedly dead because they brought that up. Remember the car accident
yeah,
thing?
and it's Lori.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think she did a terrific job. She's a really good protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the idea of Michael basically declaring war on Haddonfield. You know how he knocks out the power and the phone lines and he wipes out...
With that guy, yeah.
He wipes out most of the police force.
Mm-hmm.
And, with the addition of armed officers running around, it really gives you the sense that everyone in the town's in danger. And Michael could be anywhere at any time.
2 parts of the movie that I really liked.
The last half hour.
I did like the last half hour, and I love the way that it ended.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2 scenes that I really liked the most was when one of the officers got killed, and I forgot exactly her name, but that blonde-headed girl that came in with tea and stuff and put it down. And she's like, "Oh, I have tea for you," and then lit the candle and saw the dead cop, and Michael just stood out of the chair.
Yeah.
I think that was really, really interesting. And another part was the roof scene. The
rooftop. Yep, I was
the
just going to talk about
rooftop scene was crazy.
When he's killing all the rednecks in the truck.
Yeah.
And Sheriff Meeker, and then
that really just
blow Michael away.
That really just how can I say this? It really made us miss Michael after the first two movies, and it showed him how dominant he was still.
Now, what do you think about the actor that portrayed Michael Myers, George P. Wilbur? I think, let's hear what you have to say first.
I mean, I think he did a good job. I think,
he wasn't as bad.
He wasn't as bad. I just hated the mask that they used in the school scene. I love, but
wait, what was with that?
It was like the hair was pink. It was like the Ben Tramer mask.
Yeah, it was weird,
sort of. But no, I think he did a great job. He was very scary, and he made Jamie really, worried.
And I love the ending, of course, where Jamie stabs her stepmother and is cursed to become the next Michael Myers.
That definitely was.
It was a great cliffhanger, and Loomis, the way he screamed, really helped elevate what just happened. And it's a shame that the fifth movie does nothing with that. It was such an awesome concept.
It would have been a great sequel. Halloween 5.
Right. But also Donald Pleasance is fantastic as Dr. Loomis, and he comes off as unhinged as Michael is. He's a great character, and every scene with him is so gold. And I love the scene where he catches a ride with the crazy drunk reverend.
Yeah,
that was great. He has a drink with him and kind of just smiles, and they start singing. That was awesome.
Was great. But
Halloween 4 definitely one of the top Halloween sequels.
Definitely. Now coming in number 2 for me is Halloween 2018. The reason why I have it here is for the thing I wanted to talk about before. You see, if you take the first movie and you don't take any of the movies, you cut all that out and you just have Halloween, the original, and Halloween 2018. It's just those two movies. You see Laurie transform so much. You see her as a 17-year-old teenager who's just scared and worried out of her mind to an older woman who's determined to take down this monster. And I think that is so important to a movie, to see maturity in a person that is not afraid just to go after a person that wants to kill her. Also, I think that this could be the number one movie in my eyes sooner or later. It's definitely not now, but it could be number one spot in my eyes. Everything about it was amazing in my eyes. I think Laurie's determination was awesome, and the kills were great. Like I said before, the soundtrack was great. It just felt like a Halloween movie to me.
It did. They could have expanded on the atmosphere a little bit more, but for the most part, it did feel like a Halloween movie.
I thought the bus scene in the beginning was awesome. I thought they did a great job of showing him how he escaped and how he came back to those reporters and just killed them off right away, and then how he got his mask back. I thought that was really interesting.
Okay, so at number 2, I have Halloween 2 from 1981, and it's actually one of my favorite. It is my favorite Halloween sequel. It provides great continuity by picking up seconds after the first one ended. It feels like the one and only true follow-up to the original classic. Even though Halloween 2018 does, this one to me is the true sequel.
I agree with that.
I think
the Ben Tramer scene was really it was done well. It was done very well. And once Loomis found out it was even Michael, he kind of freaked out.
What I love about the scene so much is that I can't think of any other slasher film where they mistakenly kill the wrong guy out of sheer panic.
That was true.
He was burned to a fucking crisp.
That is also true.
I think Dick Warlock did a really good job as Michael Myers. He was played. Nick Castle played him in the original. This one is played by a different guy. His movement is chilling in the way. Did you notice how the mask kind of stretched his face?
Yes. A
little bit, and it gave a more sinister look than it did in H1. I love the POV shots of Michael in the beginning when he's walking around the town of Haddonfield.
Yeah. Do you like the pink thing? The pink they put
like the
around
flesh tone around the neck? Yeah, that was cool. 'Cause it was, do you know how that happened, though? That wasn't, like, done for the movie. Deborah Hill, who was, like, one of the producers of Halloween, I think, she worked with Carpenter and Akkad. I forgot his first name, or his last name. She kept the mask under her bed, and she was a heavy smoker, so that's why, you know, you could see, like, the flesh and all that, because it was from the smoke. Okay. And that's why it's, like, aged and dirty. So that's really cool. Yep. The hospital setting is superb, and it's one of my favorite scenes. And when Laurie's in the hospital corridor, you know, Michael walks through the glass door.
Yeah, that was...
It's great.
That was a great scene.
Great suspense. I wasn't a huge fan of the plot twist where it's revealed Michael Myers and Laurie Strode are brother and sister. It kind of reminded me of Star Wars, you know, when it was revealed that Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia were brother and sister. It just felt like, oh, come on, did they really need to do this? But it didn't. I didn't mind that they took this route. It didn't affect the course of the film to me, but they didn't need to go in the route that they did. But again, it doesn't bother me at all. I think it's the perfect slasher film. It's not the masterpiece that the original is, but it's right up there. And I still hold it equally in high regard. You know, it creates suspense, atmosphere, the style of the original, and it combines with the higher body count and a little more violence in this one. There's a little more blood, mainly because this took place around the same time as the Friday the 13th movies did. But yeah, it manages to be very faithful to the original, and it has the same kind of style that the original does, and that's why I love it so much.
Now, what would you say is your favorite kill in this movie? Because you were talking about it being bloody.
My favorite kill is the when he injects the needle into the nurse's head. That's my favorite.
My favorite scene is the scalpel scene where he just...
When he kills the nurse,
and
he's
then
like
he
holding
brings
her
it
up
right up. I thought that was badass. All right, so now for number one, you know, this should be everybody's number one.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I mean, yeah. So number one, obviously, Halloween. It's kind of self-explanatory, but we'll get into it. John Carpenter, when he first made this movie,
and they had a low budget.
And he took something little and made it humongous. This movie made this whole entire franchise. And I thought that, you know, the opening scene where we just had Michael's POV of him going into the kitchen, getting the knife, and then killing his sister upstairs was great. I thought that, you know, his escape was great. You know, like you said before, the feeling of unexpectancy, like in the car scene, the part where he's right by the bush and he sees Laurie and her friends walking, and Laurie's like, "Do you see that?" Yeah. He gets behind the bush and nobody's there. I thought that was great. I thought the ending was great. I just think, you know, no matter what, this movie should be
always remain a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah. But
and I loved how Myers in this film, he had no reason or motivation for his killing tactics. There's very little gore in this movie or jump scares, but it's filled with a feeling of suspense and dread, you know, lurking at every corner. You never know where Myers is. You know, Myers doesn't just pop up and scare you like with a loud score. You know, he's in the background of a shot. You know, he's looming around the background until the mask catches the light in just the right way, and you can kind of see him peering out, so that's what I love about it. And I love how Myers takes 20 minutes just stalking Annie like a predator, you know. You have no clue what's going to happen. Like, you're going to question to yourself, is he going to be in the laundry room? Is he going to be in the home when she goes back for the keys? Is Lindsay going to be okay? The great aspect of this scene is where we have no idea when or where he's going to get Andy. I love the use of low-key and cool blue lighting, and it delivers some fantastic shots of Myers in a suburban neighborhood. Jamie Lee Curtis played a great, innocent, but strong female character. There's so many scenes that build up the tension and the feeling of unease. You know, like when she looks out the bedroom window, Michael is between the laundry lines.
I liked when obviously this is kind of the most legendary scene in my eyes is when she's on not the balcony, but on the porch, and she sees Michael right across the street.
Or when she sees Michael outside of the classroom.
Yeah, or when she sees him outside the classroom.
There are so many great and eerie moments in this film, and Donald Pleasance probably had the best performance in this movie. I think he was the best actor. His line delivery and acting was top notch, and I don't think anybody could ever top it.
Yeah.
And we cannot forget about the iconic soundtrack. Probably the main Halloween theme is probably the best horror theme song in history.
Ever.
Yeah.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
It still holds up in today's day and age, and I think it's a great film that everyone, not like even if you're not even a horror fan, you should still appreciate it, or at least watch it during the fall season. You know,
this movie will be watched for
Years
as long as it's been watched for. It's going to continue to be watched for a long time, because once you just think of the season in October and the holiday of Halloween, you're always going to think back to a Michael Myers movie, which would bring you to the original. So that's going to conclude our Halloween rankings. I think Corey did a great job in his ranking.
Thank you, as did you.
Yep. So we'll probably review Friday the 13th next. That's, in my opinion, the second biggest.
We'll get around to the
franchise of all
Scream
time.
series as well, and we also got to do a review on the new Child's Play remake.
Of course.
That came out.
Now, before we end it off, Corey and I was talking about this yesterday for the new Halloween movies. I don't know if you want to explain a little bit or save it.
Apparently, it's a rumor, but it came from a reliable source, which is bloodydisgusting.com. Apparently, David Gordon Green wants to do two sequels. Two Halloween sequels around the same time of October. So he's going to release one movie, probably take like a little break, and then release the second movie. Interesting. I'm not sure how it's going to be executed. I'm not sure how much I trust the source.
It's going to be more of like a to-be-continued type thing after the first one.
I'm not sure how it's going to go down, but I'm going to keep up to date with Cody Leach. We watched a movie and all those big horror YouTubers. Drum Dums, of course. Yeah. And we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting if they do decide to do this. And I wonder how Michael's going to come back from this one after being burnt at the end of the 2018 one. But as we said before, this can conclude our lists. And, my name's Shane.
I'm Corey.
And thank you for watching.
Please like, comment, subscribe.
And we'll see y'all later.